Hello, friends. Today is December 4th, and our fourth Christmas story comes to us from one of the big cities on the East Coast. It's the 1920s, and Taylor Caldwell, she's in her 20s. She's recently divorced, which was not common, of course, in the 1920s. Unemployed, trying to find a way to make ends meet. It's a very stormy day, very rainy out, and she needs to get downtown, and so she rushes out to one of the streetcars and just gets really wet, gets in the streetcar because her umbrella is falling apart. She doesn't have one. She certainly can't afford to get a new one. And so she's taking the ride downtown, and she sees that there's an umbrella beside her. So she grabs the umbrella, and she looks at it, and this is a gorgeous umbrella. It's made of silk. The handle is enameled silver. It's got flecks of gold in it. And she's looking at it. This is just beautiful. And she sees that there is a name engraved into this handle. And so it gets to her stop, and so she pulls it up and she goes, but she stops off at a public phone. It's not like her to just kind of grab an umbrella, even though it was obviously left there by someone. So she gets to a public phone and she looks up the name that was on the handle and gives this person a call. And a lady answered. And Taylor learns it is indeed this lady's umbrella. It had been a gift from this lady's parents, and the parents had then passed away. And this umbrella had actually been stolen from her. This lady was a teacher. She was working at a prestigious school, and this umbrella had been lifted from her locker. And so she was really excited that someone had found it. And so Taylor's like, I will return it to you. So they got the address, and Taylor brought it to her. And so when she got there, the teacher, her eyes, they teared up, and to have this gift from her parents who are now gone, it was a big deal. And the teacher offered her $20 as a reward to get it back. And Taylor's broke. She's got nothing. An apartment that she's really struggling to pay for, and that's it. But she didn't take it because she just wanted to share in this teacher's joy of having this precious heirloom from her parents back in her life. And so she said, no, thank you. They talked some and just shared in the joy of the found umbrella. And it was probably good that she did, because joy was something that Taylor was going to need, because the next several months were just horrible for her. She tried to find employment. She couldn't find it. She had temporary work. She found some of those things, and it kept her afloat just enough to keep her apartment. And she would occasionally try to save like 25 cents or 50 cents because Christmas was coming. And Taylor had a 6-year-old daughter, actually not quite 6. And she was at convent school, but she knew that she would be coming back and spending Christmas at the apartment. So she tried to save some money. And so she was able to do that, but not a lot. And she bought a few rather meager gifts for her daughter, Peggy. Come Christmas Eve day, Peggy is at Taylor's apartment, eagerly waiting for Taylor to return home. Taylor is again unemployed. But as Taylor's coming home from the job search, she's just struck with despair, because she's looking at her situation, and her situation is really bleak. She hasn't found any work, just those temporary jobs, and nothing has come recently. She has prayed hard to God, and she hasn't had any answer. She's prayed consistently for weeks and weeks about her situation. She has $15 to her name. That's it. And that's gonna feed her and Peggy until Peggy goes back to convent school at the beginning of the year. But after that, she has no money. And $30 rent would be due on the 1st of January. So basically, Peggy would go back to school, and Taylor's going to be homeless, and she's going to be penniless, and presumably she's not going to have anything to eat. And so, understandably, as she's walking home, and of course it's snowing, it's cold, the coat that she has is too thin, really, for the occasion. And she begins to despair. She's looking around at all these people, and they're doing last minute things for Christmas. They've got parcels, they're laughing, they're happy. But not her. She's she's struggling. She's struggling a lot. She gets into her building and goes to her mailbox. It's nothing of a sheaf of white envelopes, the kinds that bills come in, and she couldn't even get herself to look at it. She just kind of holds on to it and walks up 3 flights of stairs to her apartment, pausing right outside that apartment door. She's going to put the artificial smile on. She doesn't want to bring her daughter down. Peggy's been in there by herself all day for a 5-year-old. Big deal. And so she opens the door and she sees her apartment, and Peggy has set the table there, and there's 3 cans of food that they're going to eat that evening. There's gelatin and some things with which to make some makeshift hamburgers. It's a pretty scanty meal, and that does nothing to help Peggy. It makes her heart sick. But Peggy, of course, knows none of this. She just throws herself into her mom's arms and hugs her really joyously. And she's right away, we gotta decorate the tree. And so Taylor begins to go through the motions of decorating the tree with Peggy, and she's just fighting off this internal existential crisis about being alone, about being abandoned, about being broke, about being homeless here soon. She's just fighting off the tears. And the doorbell rings, and Peggy proclaims, "It's Santa! It's Santa!" And of course, no, and Taylor doesn't know what's next. Peggy opens the door, and there's a man, and he's just loaded down with parcels, a delivery man. And so he says, "I got a bunch of packages for you." And Taylor's like, "No, it's a mistake," and she looks at one of the labels, and the label is actually from the teacher that she had returned the umbrella to. That teacher had moved to California, and she had learned that earlier in the conversation that they'd had at the exchange. But now there's several packages from her being delivered to this apartment. And so the delivery man kind of puts them in and goes on his way. And Peggy, she tears into all of these packages. And the first one is just this huge doll. It's marvelous. They open the next one. It's a nice leather purse for Taylor. There's gloves. There's candy. There's a whole bunch of things, necessities that Taylor didn't have and she really needed. And so she's tearing up. She's fighting it on the inside, and she can only pray this, God, who she feels like hasn't heard her, just this silent thank you, as Peggy's just running around and just loving it. And it kind of changed perspective on everything, because the scanty meal no longer felt like a scanty meal. It felt like a feast, and it was a good night. And so Taylor puts Peggy to bed, and Peggy goes to bed, and so Taylor gets looking around, and she's like, okay, I got to face the bills. And so she gets out these bills, and she begins filing them away, as she usually would, but she knows she has no money to pay for these things. And then she gets to the last 2, and she opens up second to last one, and she finds out, though, it's not a bill, but rather it's a check. One of the temp agencies that she had worked for in the summer, actually, it was written Christmas bonus, and it was $30. And she was really excited because she's like, I have my rent for January. I'm not going to be homeless. And she opens up the last envelope. And the last envelope is not it's not a bill either, but it's not a check. It's a job offer from the federal government. And they're asking if she can start the day after Christmas. And so she's just there, and she's got her rent in one hand and a job offer in the other. And she closes her eyes. And right then, the church bells of the city start to ring, heralding in Christmas. And the thought comes to Taylor, unbidden, I never was alone after all. I never was abandoned. And she remembered the true Christmas message, Emmanuel, God is with us. My prayer is that God is with you this season. Grace and peace to you. And don't forget the important things. Take care.